accent there? Where'd that come from? I have no idea at all. Yes. Any other missionary kids here? Just, I'm the only weird one? There's no one else that's weird like me here today. Okay, I'll tell you a wee bit more about how weird I am in a wee minute. But first of all, yes, alabaster. Please give for that. It's really, really important because there's so much work going on for the Lord all over the world. You know, I read something recently. Has anybody else been hearing this or reading it? That apparently there are more evangelical Christians in China today than here in the United States. See, when we think of China, when we think communists, yeah, I mean, there's some communists in charge, and, you know, we know where that whole thing went. But the Lord's been building His church this whole entire time. We have brothers and sisters in the Lord in China. And so when you hear all this political stuff going on, and we don't want them, and we don't like, stop. If we follow the Lord, guess what? God is not willing that any should perish. He doesn't love us, you know, more than anybody else. I know we might think we're His favorites and everything, but actually God does not have favorites. Jesus so loved the world that He came and gave His life for everyone all around this world. Now, how weird are missionaries? Let me tell you, you know, people say to me, you know, over the years, they've said to me, you're a bit feisty, you know, and it's true. Just ask my husband, I'm a wee bit feisty. But let me tell you about some of the women I grew up with. My mother was a midwife in the jungle, the Ituri jungle. And all she had was a wee, you know Mary Poppins? Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? She had a wee bag like that. And when she got called, she would charge off through the jungle, delivering babies and stuff. My daughter is a doctor, and she works in the University of Michigan. And she has my mom's wee bag still. And you know, doctors show off a bit. You know, they have these like fancy leather bags, and they look at hers and say, "What's that?" It's a long story, she says. So my mother's wee bag's still there. But let me tell you about another doctor, Helen Rosebeard. Actually, she was murdered at the time of the Civil Rebellion. But before all of that happened, she was a doctor called of God to the mission field. And, you know, she came through the mission station where we were at one point. She says to my dad, who was a tradesman, my dad's whole family were all shipyard men. Belfast Shipyard, have you ever heard of it? They were all carpenters and all kinds of tradesmen. So that's my background, that side. So my dad was always into trades, and she came into our mission station, "Bob, you need to help me." He says, "Well, what do you want my help for? You're a doctor, you know way more than I." "No, nothing like that." She says, "I need to know how to make bricks." "What?" "Yes, I'm building a hospital. And I need you to tell me how to make bricks." Right? So he started telling her how to make bricks and how to build a kiln and how to fire them and all this and that. So she went back to her mission station all excited. She came back 3 months later crying. "Mom, it didn't work. I messed up something. What'd you do?" So she explained everything, and he said, "Well, there's where you went wrong. Now, you do it this way. Make sure you do it this way." She went back to her mission station. She came back in some months. "Hallelujah, Bob! I made a whole kiln of bricks, and they're all good." So, now how do you build a building? She says. So we had to teach her how to do all that. Anyway, one day on our mission station, she was way up. This is the doctor. She was way up in the eaves in the building, and she was working away. And this fancy Belgian kind of dignitary guy came driving through, and he stopped, and he thought it was a workman. He says, "Hello, up there. I need to know where the doctor's house is, please." She said, "Okay, sure." So she showed him the long way round to her house. She got down off the rafters, went the short way, got in the back door, took off her work overall and put on her medical overall, and met him. "Yes, what can I do for you today?" So that's the kind of women I grew up with. So it's not a bit of wonder, as we would say in Ireland, that I'm weird and feisty and all that. But I'm saying all that too to help you understand the importance of alabaster. Is this too loud or anything? No, all right. Because it builds these buildings, right? That money goes towards this kind of stuff so that people can get these buildings made and maybe doctors don't have to do it. Maybe they can get on with the medical work and these buildings are made. So please give generously. My mother always used to say, we just kind of teaspoon it into God's work and the Lord shovels it back. She always used to say, you can't give to the Lord because He loves us so much. He's always giving back. Just give from your full heart whatever God's telling you to do. So the Lord bless you as you continue to raise the alabaster this month. We're raising it too in our church. And I just want to say, yes, this is a wonderful privilege for me to be the president. And what we're focused on, the DS and I are kind of working on something. It's coming up, the convention this year. Keep your eye on it. We're going to do something different with missions this year. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But before I get there, the other piece of it is we're really trying to focus on young people. Okay? Because young people often have this idea, missions are what my parents do or my grandparents. That's the stuff way over there somewhere. No. We want young people to understand everybody can be involved in missions. Absolutely. But do you know why? Do you know that you have already been called? Do you realize that? Oh no, the Lord hasn't called me to be a missionary. Wrong. Already called? The only thing you got to work out is where. Lord, where do you want me? Don't assume the Lord wants you right here. Sorry, Pastor, I'm not trying to empty your church or anything. But, you know, that's what we do, isn't it? Because that's where our friends and neighbors and this and that. My parents were 2 mill workers. Linen, have you ever heard of Irish linen? It was famous at one point. They were mill workers. My mother was a doffer. You know, the threader person, she was the doffer. And my dad was in the engineering, what do you call that? Work in the machines. And God called him to Congo. What? Why? We're from Belfast. Can we not just stay here? No, I need you in the Congo. That was before internet and everything. They hadn't a clue where they were going. They had been to school till they were 14. And in those days, working class kids couldn't go to school any longer than that. That was it. Get you out to work in the mill. Get out and bring me your paycheck. My mother's parents died. When she was 3, her dad died. When she was 6, her mom died. My dad's mom died when he was just after he was born. A few months after he was born. And his dad died when he was a teenager. Okay. Why am I saying all this? Because would you expect that people with that kind of background, God would take them from here and send them to Congo? Why? Because God is God. That's the end of it. And we simply have to do what He says. And they followed the Lord to Congo. Now, my mom did go on. They went to Bible college, and in those days, Bible college were like finishing schools too, right? Because so many kids hadn't been to school, as I said, beyond 14. So my mom and dad did Bible school, and then my mom went back and did midwifery, and my dad went on and did more theological studies, and then they went to Congo, right? But they had no idea. They had never learned another language in their life before. They had no money. Do you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't like a whole list of, oh, I have this and that and there and something. Yeah, God's going to call me here. No. Do you know why not? Because you would think you're it, if that was it. I'm here now. And God has sent me, and I can do this, 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 and this. Can God use that? No. So why God takes us to these amazing callings is beginning to the end so God can get the glory. So that's why we're kind of changing up a wee bit what we're going to do at convention too, because I really want us to get hold of this, that God is a missional God. And if we say we follow the Lord Jesus, we simply have to do it. Follow him. Wherever he leads. And he might want you here. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with being here. I'm not saying you shouldn't be here. But ask God about it. And don't forget, if there's any young people listening at all, ask God who you're going to marry. Please. Don't mess that bit up. And as my mother used to say, do not fall for good looks. Because they all end up like this anyway. Looks fade. And you have to have an awful lot more going on than just, oh, he's cute. Let me tell you, we've been married 40 years, God willing, this year. Yeah, he definitely was cute. But these days, we're annoying each other to death because we're getting older. What do you mean you forgot that? Well, did you remember it? No, but that's besides the point. You should have remembered it. Right? Cuteness won't cut it. I'm just saying. You have to know you love the person for sure. But here's the thing I'm trying to tell you. Make sure you're on the same page of life. And don't be pulling like this. It's such a waste of life. Get on the same, make sure you meet somebody and marry somebody. I mean, you don't have to get married. But if you want to get married, that's on the same life page. Because then you can get some good work done for the Lord. And you're not spending your life shouting at somebody and getting mad at them and all the rest of it, right? So, really important decisions. But this is what we're trying to really push on the district. God is a missional God. How do we know this? For God so loved the world. What did he do? He gave his son. Why? So that no one should perish, right? That's who God is. Simple. So we cannot follow him and not be interested in missions. Missions is not just about going to a different country. Missions is about following the Lord. End of it. And if he takes you to another country, praise the Lord. Go for it. But if he doesn't, be a missionary here. In fact, my dad used to say in his broad Belfast accent, taking a plane or a boat doesn't make you a missionary, you know. If you're not a missionary where you're standing, you'll never be a missionary anywhere else. In fact, my dad used to say, I think some people come out to the mission field because they can't get on with people at home. Because some of them would be out in the mission field, they were all weird and stuff, and wouldn't get on with other people. He said, it's not about it. So it's about serving the Lord. It's about following him. Now, I'm even saying this as a pastor's wife. I didn't want to be a pastor's wife. And why? Well, people fall out with their pastors. And sometimes they say some nasty things, but I sit down to you, I'm not being a pastor's wife. This was after we were married then. Now, we knew before we got married that we were both called into ministry. It's just, I thought I already had it sorted out where God was sending me back to Congo. That was it. And I told Andy that. So if you're okay with going back to Congo, then we can get married. He said, sure, I'll go to Congo. But then after we got married, it became obvious that that wasn't what God was. Do you know I fought with the Lord over that? And then I had to realize, hang on, that was just my idea. It wasn't actually God's idea. And after Bible college and all that, then God called us into church ministry. You know, when I stonemason. I married a tradesman, because that's what I was familiar with. I think God snuck up on me and kind of said, yeah, give her a tradesman till it's done. Then I'll tell her what I really want them to do. And then we went to Bible college, and Andy did his degree and all of that, and we were called into ministry, right? Here's what I'm trying to get at with that. I remember, it was in Brampton Church of the Nazarene up in Canada, and I remember at the altar when Andy was being ordained. I remember, and this is how the Lord has to speak to me because I am feisty. Sorry, Lord. I'm working on it, you know I am. Right at the altar, the Lord spoke clearly to me as I was kneeling beside Andy, and he said to my head, and this is about you too. I have called you to be his wife. Be quiet and accept it. Honestly, if it had been an audible voice, it couldn't have been any clearer to what went into my head. And I knew from that moment God had called me into the church ministry alongside my husband. Why am I saying that's important? Ministry is difficult. And if you're in the ministry because you think your husband's cute, forget it. You have to be able to stand strong together. And I always say this, Andy love, I love you with all my heart, but I am a pastor's wife, not because of you, but because it was God's idea. And he called me to it. Do not marry a pastor unless you're called into ministry. I mean it. And this goes for men too, because we have female pastors now, right? Thank God. Right? So, do not go into ministry anywhere in the world until you know God is leading you. But once you know he's leading you, follow him and do his will. Now, how weird am I? I was born in the Ituri forest of Congo. Not even joking. Not even joking. That's why I don't eat meat, by the way. Because all my best friends were, jumping around trees and stuff. In fact, there was one day I was made to eat something. I used to have a pet rooster called Cockles. And I used to go out and he would come and he would eat from my hand. And I went out to feed him one day and he wasn't there. I says, Mom, Cockles is gone. You ate him yesterday. I ate my friend. So I tell my grandkids now, I don't eat my friends anymore. But, yeah, animals everywhere. The forest, if you ever go to a jungle or an equatorial forest, it is the noisiest place on earth. You think New York City's noisy? Go to a jungle. Everybody's squawking and yelling and shouting. All the animals are all these everywhere going on. It's the noisiest place. But it's awesome. And that's where I was born. My two brothers were born in the jungle too. See, when you're a missionary kid, you don't get to call it. You just are born wherever your parents are at, right? So I was born in the jungle. And then when we got up a wee bit older, we went to missionary boarding school. Now that was a riot and a half. In the jungle, in the wee villages, because my mom was out delivering babies, like I told you, my dad was teaching them the men trades and stuff. So the village mamas were raising me alongside their kids, right? And we were just like one of them. And they were one of us, and we were all happy. Then I went to a missionary boarding school. It was awful. I hated it. And they were all white kids. They were all laughing their heads off at me. All of a sudden, I was the target of everybody's hilarity. The Irish kid. Look there, she's Irish. She's stupid. And first of all, I'm like, I'm not Irish. What do you mean, Irish? And then second of all, why am I stupid? I had no idea. The first time I really experienced that kind of oppression was in a missionary boarding school. I'm not even kidding. So don't think that, when everybody around you is the same skin color as you, you're all good. Mm-mm. Not necessarily so. You're still going to get people who think they're better than you. So that was a very hurtful experience for me. And I spent most of my years up a guava tree. And it's so funny because a lot of the kids who were missionary kids at that time were all old now. And they say to me, we don't even remember you in the school. I said, because I was always up a tree. And nobody came to look at me, look for me. Except one night, one guy came, bless his heart. And he was a wee bit odd. You know what I mean? Like, the way there's cool kids, and then there's those that are a wee bit odd. He was a wee bit odd. And he came to the tree and he hollered up, Ruth. Yeah. So they've decided we have to have boyfriends and girlfriends. Who has? I said, the guys, the ones in charge. They've all said we have to have a girlfriend or boyfriend. Ruth, nobody wants you or me. So can you be my girlfriend? I'm like, do you have any chocolate? Not even kidding. He said, yeah, I've got some in my dorm room. Okay, bring me some, and then I'll be your girlfriend. That was it. And that was the end of it. We didn't have anywhere to go. Where could we go? We're up in Congo, what I mean. I'm up a tree, and bless his heart, I don't know what he was doing. But you just had to be in pairs because the cool kids said that was what had to happen. So anyway, that was just a funny story about that. But after boarding school, then we went back to Ireland, and for, 10 years in there, we traveled around. My family name was McAllister before I was married to Andy. His name is Andy Reynard. So now I'm Ruth Reynard, but I was raised Ruth McAllister. I thought Reynard was prettier. I don't know if you like it better, but I always liked Ruth Reynard better than Ruth McAllister. But we were like the Von Trapp family singers. We sang everywhere. We've even got, hello, I'm very cool. We have got vinyls. Yes, I'm not even kidding. Our family made 4 vinyls, and I made a solo vinyl. Woo! That's what I'm talking about. And so we even came to the States when I was 15, and we sang. We were supposed to sing with the Gaithers, and this was before all the digital stuff. They had double booked and didn't realize it, so we weren't then singing with them. So we ended up singing with the Oak Ridge Boys. You remember them? So we were touring the States and doing all kinds of this stuff. So that went on through my teens. And then I met Andy. And Andy's from England. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the Irish history. The Irish don't like the English. Because the English came into Ireland and took over. And the Irish had never forgiven them for that. And my friends were like, what? You're going to marry an Englishman? You're going to marry one of them? Are you stupid? You can't marry an Englishman. You can't trust them, Ruth. So here's what I was saying earlier about finding out God's will. I did honestly think he was the cutest thing I'd ever seen. We met at a missionary conference, and I was singing with my family, and he was attending with his family. But long story short, when things got a bit more serious, I remember getting down on my knees, and my prayer was this: Lord, he's cute, and you know he's cute, but I do not want to mess up his life, and I do not want to mess up my life. Could you please show me if this is your will? And I'm willing to end it with him if it's not your will. That was honestly, before God, my heart. And God showed me over a couple of weeks, reading his word, and he assured me in my spirit this was the guy for me. So we got married. We lived in Ireland during the time of the Troubles. Honestly. And he came from Yorkshire. He had a right British accent. And he would say, we made fireplaces. Oh, I'd love to come over and make you a fireplace. I said, can I answer the phones? Not you. Because, they'll think you're a soldier or something. So he had his own fireplace business for 3 years, and then God called us both into full-time ministry. Now, we went to our pastor, we went to the Nazarene Church in Lurgan, Northern Ireland. We said, Pastor, we think the Lord's calling us to be in full-time work. And he says, well, let me tell you, I'm on the board of the British Isles Nazarene College. And I'm supposed to tell you to go to the British Isles Nazarene College. But he said, if I know anything, and if I know you two, God's not going to keep you here in Britain. I just know it. He said, you two should go to the European Nazarene College. So we spent next 4 years of our lives in Germany, Switzerland, right on the border for 4 years. Then from there we went to Canada for Andy to church plant with the Church of the Nazarene, and we were there for 11 years. And then we were called to minister in Tennessee. Whoa! We went from Ontario, Canada to Nashville, Tennessee. I kid you not. I think God has a sense of humor sometimes, don't you? In fact, do you know Henry Spalding from Mount Vernon? Well, he worked with me in Tribeca too. And he says, Ruth, we laughed so hard when you were brought to the district. You Irish hit English, and there you are in Nashville. He said it was hilarious. I don't know whose idea it was, but it must have been God's. So then we have ministered for the Lord in different states. We've been in the States since 2000, and we became citizens last year. So I'm saying all of that to say, when people say to me, where are you from? I'm like, how long have you got? Seriously? Because we've been all over the place. And maybe some of you have traveled around and lived in different places. And it's an interesting life, isn't it? To get to meet different people and to see what God's doing all around the world. It's an incredible learning experience. But before I stop today, I promise it won't be too much longer. What time is it anyway? I've got a wee bit of time. I want to talk to you a little bit about the period of time when we were still in Congo in 1964. So you're going to know my age in just a second. I was only 4 in 1964. And during that time, there was a massive, massive rebellion that swept right through the center of Africa. And it was called the Simba Rebellion. Anybody watch Lion King? What are Simbas? Lions. Swahili for lion. So it was the Simba rebellion, people were massacred. Missionaries were killed. Congolese Christians were killed. It was a massive bloodbath that went on right down through the center of Africa. Now, we were all on a mission station just outside one of the bigger cities. And we were there for a conference, and the plan was that all the missionaries were going to go back to their villages where they were ministering. And then this big thing broke out, so we couldn't move. And a bunch of rebels came onto the mission station and started shooting guns everywhere, blasting the whole place. We were all wee kids, watching. And they told us, you are not allowed to leave this compound. And if any of you do, you will be killed immediately. Stay here. So for, I think it was 3 months? No, 3 months. We were held under house arrest. Now, there were 2 men, my dad and another missionary, because some of the other missionaries were imprisoned and they were away from their families because they were Americans. I'll tell you why in a second. My dad had an American passport, but he also had a British passport. So he showed them his British one. That's what my dad said. My dad actually in his life had 4 passports before he died. He says, Ruth, when you're doing the Lord's work, he says, the Lord comes first. And he says, all these countries, you have no idea what's going on and who's in charge of what and what's really going on. So he said, you have to be smart. So he showed them the British one. They let him out. And his best friend was a Canadian. Uncle Hector used to call him. They let him out too. So 2 men, the rest of the American men were still held in prison. My dad and Uncle Hector came to the place where we were held under house arrest. There were 14 kids and 9 women, the moms and some single missionaries. The 14 kids, the youngest was a wee girl of 18 months. I'm still friends with her. We still text and stuff. She was 18. I was 4. We went right up to a teenager of 18. And, we played around, but we weren't, our parents kept us under house, because the rebels were just across the road. Now, they would come every morning shooting the place. My dad would all go out. My dad would go to meet them to try and keep them away from all of us. What do you want? He would ask them. And whatever they he would try and pacify them and then keep them away from all the kids and stuff. So this went on for those months. Anyway, one day, they'd taken everything, but there was one little transistor radio, one of those ancient ones where the different waves and stuff. And so the missionaries were all huddled around this because this was their only contact with the outside world to know what was going on. And this particular morning, the rebel leader announced and said, "Men, you see the birds in the sky, and they're dropping soldiers." That was mercenaries in different groups of military that were being dropped. "We're on the run. Sharpen your knives, and every white person you see, whether it's man, woman, or child, take their heads off." That was then the radio went dead. Our parents were there with all of us. And so we all went to our rooms and prayed. Now here's what's interesting, and I want to call this the complexity of God. God can be complex at times. He doesn't do what we think, does he, sometimes? And we're like, what is he doing? It's as plain as day what he should do. And then he's doing something else. That morning, after that announcement, my dad was with my 2 brothers and my mom and me. And he told us all, remember I was only 4, he said, "Children, I know we've heard a terrible announcement today, but I don't know why. God has told me clearly we are going to be delivered from this. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'm claiming it today in Jesus' name because I believe God has told me that." We did not know until many years. Have some of you seen the documentary that the BBC did of my family? If any of you have watched it, you'll see a wee scene in there where we're talking to one of the kids of this other family. Kids. We're now all old people. But this was the first time we all kind of exchanged notes, what happened that morning. And what happened in their family was Uncle Hector, now there were 6 boys in that family. 6! And his wife and himself. And they had their devotions that morning. And Uncle Hector said, "Kids, I don't know when or how, but God has told me I am going to die." He said, "Now hear me. God has told me this. So no crying and no fuss. It's God's will." That seriously happened that morning. And later that day, some of the missionaries had gotten out of the prison. They'd escaped. And they asked around some of the troops that were in vehicles, and finally a group of Americans said they would come out the 8 kilometers to try and help us. So later that day they came out and they piled us, before they came, let me just say what happened. The rebels came just before they came. Just before, like half an hour. Not kidding. And they called us all out and said, "Everybody line up outside, we're going to shoot you outside." So we all lined up. And I'm standing in front of my mom. I told her, I don't they were going to lift the knives. So they lifted the guns and they pointed them directly to our face. And they put them down. Don't know why we can't kill you. We all said, actually, my mother even stopped and said, thank you very much. And we were walking back into the house, the mission house, when suddenly they called my dad and Uncle Hector. You two men, though, we're going to kill you out here. Come down with us. And they let the rest of us go into this building, and they marched the two men out. When one of them went rogue, came into the building and started with an automatic weapon just shooting around all of us, women and kids. My mom yelled, everybody hit the floor! So they all get, and then my mom's on top of me, and I'm going, I can't breathe. She's like, shush. I'm still talking, right? There's bullets everywhere. And Uncle Hector, my dad, were just walking down the path. Uncle Hector heard this. He knew his wife and kids were in there, right? My dad did. They both turned around. The rebels that were out with them shot them in the back. Shot Uncle Hector in the back, riddled him with bullets. He dropped down. And my dad said, hey, you've killed my best friend. And they shot at my dad. Same rebels, same guns. And my dad felt a bullet going right across his forehead. He says he felt a bit dizzy, so he thought, better lie down because then they'll think I'm dead. So he fell down. And they came and looked at him. Then they went on, got on their Jeep, and took off. My mother was the only nurse in the group. She lifted her head to all the women and children, and she said, has anybody been hit? We were dead quiet. Has anybody ever had a problem believing about the Lord shutting the mouths of lions? 14 kids, the youngest 18 months, and none of us, even me, the talker, we were all quiet. So they thought we were dead. And my mom says, has anybody been hurt? 2 of the McMillan boys had been shot. One got shrapnel below the eye. One got a bullet in his hip. And to this day, he still has that bullet in his hip. Nobody can ever get it out. But he became a doctor. And he has started clinics and all sorts of things in that area. It's amazing what God does. Anyway, they were killed, they were shot at and got wounded. And one of the single lady missionaries had something happen to her leg, I think. When all of a sudden they heard the firing outside, my mom looked up and she could see through the wee vents. She said, I know, they shot Hector. And somebody else said, oh, they shot Bob too. The 2 men are lying out there. So when they saw the Jeep take off, my mom ran out to see what the situation was. And she lifted Uncle Hector's head, and all the blood just came pouring out. And I never heard my mom ever say, Hector died. She always said, he went to be with the Lord. Because she said, when she looked up, she could see the heavens open, and the Lord was there, receiving Uncle Hector into his presence. And then she hollered at my dad, Boy, are you all right? And he lifted up, aye, I'm a bit dizzy. Same guns, same rebels, and he got just a wee bit of skin taken from his forehead. Why? Because God planned it that way. God is in control. Yes, there's whacked out things happen to us in our lives, right? There's some very serious and damaging things that can happen to us in our lives. Yes, we were all traumatized as kids, but God said to my dad, you will live, and Uncle Hector, you will die. And that's exactly what happened. So not only do we have a God who cares for us, but who's complex. You're right? God is complex, like I said, but he's also consistent. If he has promised something, he's going to do it. Do you believe that? He will do it. No matter what people think, they're in control. No, if God says something, he will do it. And that's exactly what that happened that day. Now, I'm saying all of that to say, when we were rescued by the CIA guys, the American CIA guys, they're a bunch of Cubans, actually, who had fought against Castro and stuff like that. And so So they had gotten asylum here in the States, and the States said, yeah, you can live here, you'll be safe here. They all live in Florida. Great place. You will be safe here, but the condition is you will fight for us wherever we tell you to fight. So the American government sent them to Congo. Now, America had told the world they weren't in Congo. But for 5 years, those CIA guys were fighting the Simpas. Because the Cold War, remember that? The Cold War was being fought out in Congo. And, you know the statute of limitations and stuff? We didn't know that for years. We thought it was mercenaries who had rescued us. But eventually, through Facebook and stuff, a couple of the CIA guys tried to, because they said, we were tough military guys, but when we were rescuing you 14 kids, we had tears rolling down our face. We couldn't believe it, and we've worried about you every day since. And they were trying to find us. Well, all men keep their names, right? Women change their names because they get married and stuff. So they looked up Macmillan. Remember I told you the Macmillan family, the 6 boys, and their dad who was killed. So they looked them up on Facebook and found them. So they met with them and told them the whole story. It was us. We were CIA guys that actually rescued you. And they said there was one CIA guy, and he said, his name is Juan Tamayo. I also had a little girl. Her mom gave her to me. And I had her on my knee. And I was the machine gunner. And I was machine gunning up and down the roads, and she was sitting right here, and I've been worried about her all these years in case her back was broken or she's deaf now or something because of the noise of the gun. Do you know who she was? I said, well, I don't know. There were a lot. She had blonde hair. Well, a lot of them had blonde hair. He said, well, she wouldn't stop talking. We know, it was Ruthie. I had the privilege of meeting Juan. It was the 50-year anniversary of that. And I looked at him and I said, you saved me. Has anybody ever been rescued by somebody? It's an amazing feeling. You saved me. Oh, and he just died actually a couple of months ago. But you know what? God gave me that wonderful opportunity to see him as an adult woman and to say thank you to him for what he had done. But what I just said there, when you're rescued by somebody, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Here's the deal. We can grow up in the church, and we can hear every single week, Jesus loves you. We sang it today. Jesus died for you. Jesus paid the price for you. Yeah, and I know the verse. Yeah, we did it in memory verses in Sunday school. Yeah, I know. Hello? We've been rescued. You know where we were headed? We were headed to the pit of hell. That's where we're headed without Jesus. He rescued us. And that's why we must follow him actively wherever he sends us. Because this life is very short. Have you noticed? I can't believe, sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I say, who are you? Where did you come from? Life goes by like that, doesn't it? There's hardly any time that we're alive, so let's use it to spread the news. Jesus died so that we may live. It's wonderful news. And do not let politics or anything stop you from understanding God is building his church around this world. We have brothers and sisters in every country. Heaven is going to be amazing with every language and every culture and everybody worshiping the Lord. And yet here on this earth, we keep ourselves away from each other. Oh, I'm not going near them. I don't like those people. Stop it! Or they don't have the skin color of me. I don't understand them. They look weird. Stop it! Actually, it's a good job not many people have my skin color. It's not a very good skin color, to be honest. This Irish kind of freckly thing going on. I had a dermatologist tell me in Charlotte when Aunt ministering there, Charlotte, North Carolina. Can you please tell me why people with your skin color are insisting on going to places like Congo? You're not supposed to be there. That skin doesn't work in Congo. But people with every color of skin. See, yeah, you could say, well, those were Congolese people that shot you, or that wanted to shoot you. Yeah. Yeah, those were Congolese people that murdered all those people. Yeah. Does it happen here? Do people get murdered here? Do people get hounded down here? Do people get abused? Does it matter what color of skin we have? No. Because even alongside all of those Congolese who were shooting and killing everybody, where's the Congolese who loved the Lord and running for their lives? And often they would come by the missionary house where we were all held as hostages and risk their lives to leave food for us and run away again. Because God's people are everywhere. And please get this through to your head today, they're every color. God's people are every color. Every color. Every language. Every culture you could imagine. Rich, poor, educated, not educated. God's people are everywhere. And we must seriously get busy serving the Lord and following Him. So the first C, that there are 3 C's. God is complex, right? Sometimes He does things we don't understand. God is consistent. He always does what He says. And the third thing, He's compassionate. And any who call upon the Lord will be saved. We don't call it, God calls it. We don't get to say it. Oh, they'll never be in heaven. Stop. We didn't die for anybody's sins. I didn't. None of you did. Jesus died. He calls it. He knows who belongs to Him. You know, as a missionary kid and as a pastor's wife, there's often people hiding in churches. And I'm going to call you out today, whether you're here or whether you hear this later on from home. Stop hiding in churches. Stop pretending things. If you're upset with somebody, go fix it. Oh, I'm off. Go fix it. If you're upset with somebody, fix it. Right? If you say you love the Lord, follow Him. Get on with it. Follow Him. Be active serving the Lord. And third of all, love everyone. Now, that's a hard one. Because some people can be annoying. Right? And they just won't do what you tell them. Right? So, what kind of love is it? Now, I'm going to tell you this wee quick story, and I promise you then I'll shut up. In Bible school, there was a person who really wore me out. She annoyed me. Like, I can't even explain to you how much this woman annoyed me. She complained about the kids all the time. Well, you know, they're my kids, and I'm noisy and feisty, so they were a wee bit noisy and feisty. We have 4 kids, by the way. They're all adults now. We have 7 grandkids. Can you believe it? Anyway, the kids were all in and around the campus, and they're misbehaving, and they're this and that, and she was always reporting, and this is going wrong, and this is going wrong. And finally, I went to the principal's wife, Mrs. Crow, Linda Crow. Wonderful people. Missionaries, actually, the Crows. And I said, I have a problem. I can't stand her. She says, Ruth, let's pray about it. I said, why? She says, because we want God to fix it. No, we don't. Yes, we do. Okay. You ever been there? I'm just being honest. So we prayed. And then I said, all right. So I called the woman up. I said, do you mind if we just sit down and have a chat? Because there's a few things we need to get Lord, you know I don't like her. So, if you're going to fix anything here today, I need your love. Because I don't have any. Could you please just give me your love? And I walked into this room to meet her. And I kid you not, as sure as you are seeing me stand here, as I put my foot in through the door to meet her, I felt the love of God fill me from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. God's love, not mine. And I ran to her and I hugged her. And I said out of my mouth, I love you. And I'm even hearing it coming out of my mouth and going, wait, what? Wait, what? God's love showed up. We fixed our problem. And I'm here to tell you today, even we still keep in touch. If I saw her today, we're the best friends. Did Ruth do that? No. God did it. Because he has enough love. We run out of love all the time. Our love is about this deep, really. We're a bit pathetic as human beings that way. But if you really want to follow the Lord, get filled with his love. Get some forgiveness going on. And get real. Stop faking. Stop hiding. Stand up. Be real. Be accountable before God and follow him wherever he tells you to go. Amen.